Good morning, Sunrise. We're so excited. It is Easter Sunday. We are so glad that you are here with us this morning. If you don't know who I am, because I'm behind this mask, my name is Pastor Mark, and we are so excited to be worshiping with you today. Obviously, we are not worshiping together in the community at Sunrise in the building, but we are so excited to be gathering with you in this space this morning. You. Couple things before we get started today. I just want to say, like I do every Sunday, if there's somebody that you know that's a Sunrise person, please text them now and say, where are you? We need you online right now. It is obviously the fact that you can watch us after the fact, but we would really love if you could be on live so that you can comment. Keep it PG-13 because we have children around. That's why we had Greg here today, because he's been doing a lot of iffy commenting. I want to introduce my co-panelists here this morning. I've got Wes Saitoff, who helps with the band at church, also preaches sometimes at Sunrise. We're so excited to have him with us. Ashley, who you saw last week, she did such a good job playing with us on our song last week, and she's also our SNP director, and so we're so happy to have Ashley here with us this morning. And we've got Greg Ming, who is a very important part of Sunrise. He is a lead guitarist here. And also the purveyor of all good things jokes. He sends me the best jokes. Usually jokes that have to do with how my sermon was not that great. Try to pep me up and help me to do better next time. And so I'm really glad to have all of them here today. Just a couple things that we always announce at the beginning. We would love to have you comment like it's hot. We want you to go comment online, say, what is wrong? What is Mark hiding behind his mask? Is there a beauty mark on his face, like Cindy Crawford, that he's attempting to obscure to stop us from stumbling? What is it about what we're doing that makes you want to comment? We would love to have your comments all service. We want to have you say all the things you want to say, just like in church, how you all just talk whenever you want to, and how you do greeting time and you never stop greeting each other. We want you to be able to comment and share and let us know what's going on with you this morning. Let us know where you're dialing in from. I know we got people from all over the country. We got our folks out of Austin Recovery who are watching, and so if you're dialing in from anywhere, we want to know where you're coming in from. Clearly, I was born in the 80s because I just said dial in. So you remember that?
Yeah,
you were all over that. Yeah.
Sad but true.
And so this morning, we are also going to do our regular things that we do every Sunday. We're going to do Mark's tips for surviving the apocalypse at the end of the service. We're going to do a little bit of karaoke singing. We're going to be doing the best comments. So if you have some really good comments, you got to try and comment online so that we can read your comment at the end. We're going to make sure that we try to read the best ones, not just the weirdest ones, but maybe they're the same. We're going to start this morning the way that we always do. You're going to tell us who you are, where you're from, and why you're here. I'm going to invite my panel to kind of kick in on a common question that we have. The question for this morning is for Wes and Ashley and for Greg. Guys, how have you, this is the day, this is Resurrection Day, this is a day to celebrate new life, this is the day when it's like the Christmas of Christianity, except that we also have Christmas. But this is like the peak of our season, and the reason is because Christianity is so much about death and life. So I would love to hear from you guys during this COVID quarantine. How have you been what have you been grieving? What have you been missing out on? What is the hardest part for you? But also, how have you been experiencing hope? What are some places where you've seen new life grow in you? Some better patterns emerge for you? You don't have to answer those all at once, but I'm just going to start with Wes because he's next to me and he won't say no. So go ahead, Wes. What are some ways that you've been experiencing some loss during this time, but also just some new cool things that you've been seeing?
No.
What?
I think the hardest thing, the thing that I've been missing the most about all this has been having some kind of routine. My kids sleep till noon or 2, like every day, and I can...
Noon or 2?
Yeah, I mean,
wow,
it's ridiculous, and I have no reason to make them get up, so that makes it hard for me to get to bed at a normal time, and then that makes it hard for me to get up and quote unquote work. I miss that routine of getting out of the house because because I'm kind of an introvert by nature, and so I'm okay with just like being home to the point where it becomes detrimental to my mental health, because I'll just completely like get sucked into binging watching a show and not doing anything else.
So you're like really good at being a slacker.
I'm very good at being a slacker.
We're all very proud of you
yeah,
for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest thing for me, is just any kind of routine. My glasses are totally fogging up. Any kind of routine or kind of normalcy, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling that way. So it's not something that is unique to me. Do you want me to talk about the new life as well?
Sure, but you have to talk louder, because everybody says you're not talking loud enough.
Okay, I'll try to talk louder.
That's better!
Okay, thank you. The thing that I am celebrating during this time is I have a quarantine kitty.
Woo!
And that's an actual cat, not like a slang for something else. The cat's name is Theodore Bixby Hollywood Saitoff. It's co-parented by Kira and I, but we call him Teddy, and he's cute. We got him about a month ago.
So is it a hyphenated Hollywood Saitoff? Or okay?
Yeah, it's hyphenated.
It's very 21st century of you.
Yeah. He's fun to have around. He's adjusting to being at the new place, but it's been fun to have like kind of that new breath of life, that new thing in the apartment as we're dealing with all of this, this weird times that we're going through. So that's what I'm very grateful for. One of the things I'm very grateful for. Right
So
now.
get yourself a cat. Mm-hmm. Name it after all the people in your house, and that'll solve all of your problems.
Yes, exactly.
Ashley, how about you? Last week we were talking a little bit. We were watching your videos on the Snip page. If you haven't seen them, go to the Snip page and check them out. What sort of ways have you been grieving during this time, and what sort of ways have you found new life?
I definitely have missed certain people in my daily life that I didn't, always count blessed to see all the time. Even just coming to church and seeing everybody is something that's been a little bit weird to have to not only not be a part of, but like have to avoid. Because usually we're all about trying to be with our community and try to be around others to support us. So I think that I'm sometimes a little bit like Wes. I can get into my head a lot. But on the flip side of that, there's good that comes from it. I was really, really busy right before this, so it's been kind of a blessing in disguise to slow down and be at home more. See Nico. I do have a cat as well. His name is Leo Rico, actually, technically. So it's been good to try and make the best out of a funky situation, I guess, kind of see how strong people are and how resilient humans can be to the craziness, even if some people are still really, really crazy out there. I think for the most part, people who are close to me that I've talked to seem to be trying to make the best of it, and I think that's a valuable thing, and it's nice to see.
Indeed.
Now, I was going to say too, while you're at home, we want you to be answering these questions too. So let us know what things are most difficult for you. What are you grieving? What are the things that have died in your life or are on life support in your life that are difficult to not have? And what are the ways in which you're seeing hope or renewal? Apparently cats are a theme, because Greg, you have a cat too, right? Three cats. Okay, so he's doing much better than all of us. But I also, Greg, I'm going to ask you to go next, but I want you to know that someone on our page actually called you a real OG because of your mask. They said, your mask goes past all of our masks. It's so good. You look ready to rob a bank.
Well, it's tough times. You got to be prepared for any possibility that may present itself.
Like robbing a bank?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I might see one that looks inviting on the way home.
Hijacking a train?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that. All right, Greg, what, other than your 3 cats, which I'm sure you have trained to do like cheerleader poses, like pyramids and stuff, what ways have you been, what's been difficult for you about this quarantine? What's been really good and life-giving?
Well, for all you viewers out there that might have lost your jobs and are going through that, I can definitely feel for you, because right about the middle of February, I got laid off from my job after 9 years. Got kind of blindsided, and then it was so surreal because, but the blessing on that was that when you get laid off, you qualify for unemployment insurance, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that's keeping me going, and so it was so surreal because I'm shooting out resumes and such, and I get lined up and I get a phone interview, and then I had my first Zoom interview, which was kind of surreal. Never been through that before. I passed that, and then I got my appointment for my 3rd interview with a company, and then boom, COVID kicked in, and I get this phone call, and I knew what the phone call was. Oh, we need to reschedule your 3rd interview. And it's
For August.
Yeah, it's out in limbo land somewhere, and so it's kind of it's a surreal feeling to it's kind of like you have a job but you don't, and but that's all right. I can live with that, and so the other part of your question was, as far as that is a good thing, because you get, I don't care what your job is, after 9 years it's easy to get stuck in a rut, and so being forced into, sometimes it's good for your head to be in a new job around some new people and new experiences, and so that's kind of like a birth that'll happen once all this weirdness is over.
When you go to that next interview,
Yeah.
wear this, and then just be like, I am taking this job. Like, don't go out and be like, I want this. Like, I am taking this job, and but you'll just become the CEO. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to chime in real quick and mention this. You mentioned that Greg is so great with the jokes.
He is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, he had one already this morning that we didn't.
Was it about
share
me?
yet. No.
Oh.
He wants to be known as Easter Greg Hunt
Easter Greg Hunt.
for today. And I just needed to make sure that was shared.
Okay.
Because I think it's great.
Wow. Okay. So for me, it's interesting that you guys are all talking about cats, because my house was visited by a feral cat over the weekend. And if you know how much Katie and I dislike the idea of pets,
Yes, you do.
like in our space, we're fine with the idea of pets in other people's spaces, especially other people's spaces we don't visit. The idea of cats is not offensive to us, but like having a cat ourselves is not something that we were interested in. But this cat came and like made friends with my 2 boys, and like sat in the window outside. Like, we had the windows open because it was so nice outside. Sat in the window, and I'm pretty sure we started sneezing just because we could see it. Like, we were just like, we put a hex on it, but it didn't seem to work. And anyways, we wanted to get. I was feeling. I had a moment of weakness and said, we should give some milk to this poor kitten that is clearly living in the gutters, and my kids now think is, kind of beholden to us. But my wife shot that down. It's really, she did her job, because like I would have regretted that decision in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
As soon as that cat got in the milk, I would have been like, I am done. And then I would have had to do something really bad, like take that cat out to Kyle or Butte or something. And we didn't have to do that. We were calmed down. We were able to tell our kids how special the cat was, and how that cat probably belongs to someone up the street. And hopefully that works. But I'm sure we'll be seeing said cat again, because our gutters are very luxurious. So we have cats multiplying like bunnies down in our gutters. I'm noticing too. This is interesting. We have like 4 band members here too, and like normally on Easter Sunday we would like have the whole band together and be worshiping, and so it's just cool that we have 4 band members here.
What are the odds?
Yeah, what are the odds? And we are so we're so happy to have each of you. But I think it'd be interesting if we could talk about, people don't see behind the curtain very often here at Sunrise when we are hanging out before the church service. My office is the Sunrise Green Room, which is amazing because my office is also like a dumpster or dumpster fire, depending on how you want to qualify that. It's also like it's where everybody puts everything. They don't know what to put anywhere else. So it's partially me and partially everyone else. When I start feeling bad about myself, I just blame everyone else, which is a really healthy practice to do. But when we're in there and we pray before church, like we have the most bizarre conversations before we go on stage. In fact, when we were like hiring for Kimberly's position, we brought people in and like had them sit in with prayer. And I think they were most horrified about joining our church when they had to sit in with the band and have like prayer with us. So I'm interested. Could you guys just pull the curtain back for a minute? What is your best pre-service story? If you're listening online, you've ever been part of a band at Sunrise, what is your best pre-service story where we were supposed to be praying, but then something else happened, or somebody said something that was way inappropriate, and that does happen a lot. What's your best? I'm sure you've got one. What's your best pre-service story? Enlighten the audience about our green room.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is, and I'm not going to name any names or anything, but there have been a couple times.
David Johnson.
No.
Jeremy.
No, not Jeremy either. And you can stop now because that's the whole
We're
idea
getting
of
close.
not naming names.
Here at Hollywood.
Every now and then we'll be getting ready to speak and pray, and somebody will
That
say
thing we do.
That thing we do.
Yeah.
And someone will say something completely inappropriate, like you mentioned, like something like politically divisive.
Yeah.
Just before we pray, and then all
Which
of
is
a
still
sudden
better than
everyone-
some of the things that happen.
And then of course that like leads into a debate of some
Yeah.
kind.
It's like a stick. We have sticks of dynamite, like
It's
metaphorical
like,
dynamite.
Hey,
thrown
we're
into
about
the
to go.
river.
We're about to go lead worship. Hey, let's fight about something like incredibly hot trigger button issue.
Yeah.
And so you'll have to bring everyone back in and be like, no, let's pray.
Let's pray.
And I know that often there will be someone who makes like an off-color joke, and now we can name names. It's usually Jeremy. And especially on days like today, like on Easter, my dear friend Greg here will be like, seriously, like we're about to go worship. Can you please not use that kind of joke? And I always appreciate how Greg is like trying to be like the adult in the room and be like, please, like that's not appropriate for church.
Greg always dreamed of being the adult in the room. It's nice that we've forgiven them that opportunity. Yeah. See, we actually, all of us are very mature. We just act immature so that you feel better about yourself.
And it works beautifully.
Yeah, that's good.
That's why I'm still here.
Good. Greg, what's your favorite? You've been playing longer, I think. Here. Well, other than me and Ashley, you've probably been playing here as long as anybody. What's your best pre-service story?
To be honest, I really don't have a story. It's just that one thing that let me know that I was in the right place at the right church, and why I'm still here is
It's gonna be
because
scary.
Mark's office. How many pastors' offices have not one but two? Is it 2 or 3 lava lights?
Oh yeah, 3.
And that was the sign from above that told me that I was in the right place.
And the Johnny Cash sticker too, right?
Yeah, my best friend who doesn't even go to church told me about this church. And she came and spoke to Mark one day back in 2011. And she told me about the bumper sticker that Mark has on his desk that says, "God bless Johnny Cash." And that alone was enough to make me curious enough to come check the place out. And the rest is history.
All right, Ashley, what do you got?
I'm kind of like Greg. There's not one specific story that I could nail down, but I've thought of plenty of times where like you're in the middle of the prayer and you're actually allowed to hold hands because it's before all of us. And it just starts going around the circle that like someone starts weirdly squeezing
Do they
someone else.
ever do the weird finger in the palm thing?
Yeah, they tickle your hand and make you laugh, and then you're wondering why everyone's giggling. And Mark's just thinking he's doing a really good job at
Hey,
praying.
it's fair though, because I always think I'm doing a really good job. That helps. Yeah, that helps me get through at Sunrise. Yeah.
So our prayers do take a little bit longer.
Another insight into the green room that you might appreciate if you're female is that if you have to sit on my toilet in my office in the bathroom, across from my toilet is my senior picture.
That's right.
And so if you've ever wanted to use the bathroom and stare at teenage Mark, he's right there. That might have just taken this to a level where we get in trouble. But if you,
So weird.
we have a no number 2 rule. But if you are sitting down, there's some great viewer things going on there. So
That's what you get for wanting to do a number 2 in his office.
yeah, it's a penalty, especially if you're male, that you have to look at me staring at you from 2002.
Everyone can hear you very clearly too. Like if
Yeah,
you're
there's no
in
sound
that
barrier.
bathroom and then you're in the office, everyone can hear everything.
We were just talking about like one of the realities of being in the band is that like if you need to kind of unload before church, you've got to go to another place, like some other building. And so we all know where the restrooms are within a driving distance from here, so pretty well. So, but I think that's true at most churches. Well, guys, like I really, you guys miss playing together. Like we haven't played together in a long time.
We certainly do.
I think we should play some tunes. You guys want to play? Facebook crowd, you want to hear us play some tunes a minute? All right, let's go do it. Come on, guys.
All right.
Surprise! Weirdest congregation in all of Texas, probably all of the world, and welcome AR and everybody who's watching. And these are crazy times, but like I heard a lot of people on the panel say, staying creative is really important. That's really been helpful in my case, just to be really creative. We got hens. We don't have cats, sorry, but we do have hens. We have a couple chickens. They started laying eggs, so that's really awesome. And anything to just stay creative and invite God into your life and keep the family together. Lots of unity. We've been able to really demonstrate that in my family, so awesome. Now everybody, I want y'all to get up. I can't see y'all, but everybody stand up and sing with us, all right? All right, let's do this.
To feel like you were back with God's people again. So just imagine that you've got someone on your left who's sleeping, someone on your right who's saying inappropriate things at the wrong times. This is Sunrise Duty. We want you to enjoy what it is to be back with God's people again, even if God's people are all over the place. So would you sing with us this next song, Holy Water? If I can find it. sweet, sweet honey on my lips. The sound of streams near my ears. Like holy water on my skin. Dead man walking, slave to sin. I want to know about being born again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Take me where the riverside. Take me on the baptized. I need you. Oh, I need you. You're my sweet, sweet honey on my lips. Sound of symphony in my ears. Holy water on my skin. I don't want to abuse. I don't want to abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me want to shake. I don't want to abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me want to shake. I don't want to abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me want to shake.
thank you for today. We thank you for letting us worship you in a space that we come, that this place is set aside for you. God, we just ask that for everyone, the Sunrise family, wherever they are, God, whether they are sheltered or unsheltered, God, that they would feel your presence the way that your presence has filled this room. Lord, we worship you and we give you praise because today, of all days, we know that you are the risen King. God, we follow you. We seek after you. We come to you with our joys and our sadness. God, because we know that you humbled yourself to come to earth. You lived among us. You died for us and you rose again. You conquered the grave, that we too can conquer the grave and have eternal life. God, we thank you for that. Let us take this time to stop and humbly look towards you, to live a life that is worthy of you, worthy of your salvation. Although we don't have to earn grace, God, that we would have a life that glorifies you. In Jesus' name, amen. Guys, we have just a couple of announcements. This microphone is like really high. That's better. They're all looking at me like I'm crazy. It's announcement time, of course. Oh, I'm also not loud enough. It's announcement time. Of course I'm crazy. It hasn't been that long since you were at church. So we only have a couple of announcements, small groups. If you are in a small group, you have a link every week that you can join your group. We want you to do that. If you don't have a small group, please send me a message on Facebook, an email. It's Kimberly, L-E-Y-L-E-N, at sunriseaustin.org. Let me know that you don't have a small group. I will get you set up. I will put you in one. You might be a surprise to them, which can be really fun. Because we want you to be a part of the community, even though we are isolated. Next, offering. Guys, I know that things are tight. Some of us have lost our jobs. But at the same time, we need to stay focused on the kingdom and what the kingdom is doing. And I said last week for everyone to just give their coffee money. Maybe coffee is not your thing. I've never heard of these people because, right? Coffee is a thing. But maybe it's not in your life. But I'm guessing you go and get dinner for your family and you spend $30 out instead of the $5 it would take if you bought stuff at the grocery store. I'm not judging. Listen, we all do it. Well, I don't because I don't have a family. Isn't that good? Yes. So just take that money over the next week and put it towards your offering. Eat at home 1 or 2 more times. Also, it'll help you social distance if you don't go through a drive-thru. Yes, very good. If you want to give offering, you can give it online at sunriseaustin.org. You can click the link that's right next to your finger right now on Facebook that says donate. Yeah, you can. Do it. Push the button. Push the button. They're not pushing the button. They're ignoring me. I see you.
Amen.
Also, if you don't trust banks, which, I completely understand, that's fair, there's a thing called snail mail or the Pony Express. You put it in an envelope, you stick a stamp on it, and you put it in the mailbox. The mail is still running. Our address is 4430 Menchaca, it's M-E now, Road, Austin, Texas, 78748. And I think that is all of my announcements, except as we continue to do these WEIRDcasts that are going to last for probably a few more weeks. That's okay, we're going to survive it. We are starting a new sermon series, Jail Mail. Yeah? So come the next 7 weeks, find out what we are talking about for jail mail. We are going to be going through the prison epistles of Paul's in the New Testament and figuring out, what does it mean? What is he trying to tell people? And what would you write to someone if there was no way to contact them, there was no way to go see them, if you can only tell them one more thing in your life, what would it be? So we're really excited. And that's all I have for announcements. Here's our favorite guy. He's coming slowly. Mark.
Good morning, Sunrise. We are glad to have you joining us. As we said earlier, I can hear some of you singing, I think, because some of you sing so loudly that you overpower even the distance between us. We're so glad to have you guys along with us for the ride this morning. We're so thankful to be together with God's people, even though we're together in so many weird and different places. We're glad that you have decided to spend your Easter with us, no matter where you are coming from, in the country, in the world. We're glad that you've decided to spend your Easter at Sunrise. If you haven't been here in a while, we've made some amazing changes. Our floors are lovely. They have a fantastic new coat of stain and are just looking amazing. We're getting to enjoy them on your behalf. We're breaking them in by walking all over the place. When you get back, you'll be able to experience our amazing new floors as well that do not include carpet that has existed for 20 years, that has lots of 20-year-old things in the carpet that we found when we were pulling it up off the ground. And so we're really excited to let you see those when you come back. There's lots of other fun things that have happened around here since you left, and we're excited to have you come back. We now have elephant rides, clowns, soda machines all through the lobby. We have a giant inflatable gorilla on the roof of the building. Some of those things are true, some of them are not. But we want you to come back and see so that you can know which are real and which are not. I'm also just so thankful for all my bandmates coming out here this morning to worship with us. So give them an at-home round of applause. We're thankful for them coming out, wearing their masks and getting to have fun with us this morning. It's fun for us to play, but it's also, I think, just fun to kind of have a little bit of normalcy, as normal as it can be. We miss having you guys make all sorts of raucous noise every time the song's done. Like, we feel like the song's not done until there's raucous noise being made. But we'll deal with it, and maybe next week we'll pump some applause in here like they do on TV shows. So today's Easter, guys. Happy Easter, happy Resurrection Sunday. We are so grateful to think about what Jesus has done for us. I have experienced 36 Easters in my life. This is a new one for me. I'm assuming that it's a new one for you. Some of you stay at home on Easter every year, and this is like your first chance to actually participate in Easter service. Kudos to you. Some of you only come to church on Christmas and Easter, and so we're really wasting your one opportunity to come to church in the surrounding 6 months, and we're sorry about that. But we'll see you again at Christmas, all you Christers. And for a lot of us, though, we come here, we get excited about Easter, we say, He is risen indeed. We shout that back and forth to each other. Or one of my favorites, which is, Jesus has died, Jesus has risen, Jesus will come again. I think we remind ourselves every year that Jesus is the reason that we exist as a faith. I mean, we're called Christianity. We exist because of who Jesus is. We get really excited about Christmas, because Christmas is fun, but Christmas really doesn't mean anything without Good Friday and Easter. Christmas just means that Jesus was born, which is amazing. It's an unbelievable thing. But unless He goes to the cross, unless He rises from the dead, we lose our reason for existing as a faith. We lose the fact that Jesus stepped into our environment with the express purpose of dying for us. And we've been talking through this series about the fact that Jesus kept talking about during the time that He was here on earth, about how He would die, about the fact that He was going to die, about the fact that He was going to be risen from the dead, about all these things. He would say them to His followers, and His followers would just give Him this blank look like, And when He actually went to the cross and died, the disciples were surprised. And it must have just boggled Jesus' mind. They were so surprised that this was happening, because He'd literally been telling them about it over and over and over again. And even after it happened, all of the disciples were just so like dismayed and shocked, even though He had told them over and over again, I'm going to die, I'm going to come back to life, just wait a little bit of time, it'll be fine. It was not fine. They didn't believe Him. He shocked them when He came back to life. They were so surprised. And it must have been just for Jesus, like one of these, oh my Lord, like what in the world is going on? He could say that because He's the Lord. And so as He's saying that, He's like, he's just frustrated that people, He's been telling them over and over again, they just don't get it. Thick-skulled human beings that we are, they didn't get it. You and I probably wouldn't have gotten either. You and I probably would have fled the scene when He was getting arrested. You and I probably would have seen Him on the cross and been like, well, I guess that's it, and then move on, and we would be shocked to see that He came back. Some of us who are real real manic about our faith would have already found a new Savior after 3 days. We would have been like, I already found a new one, because the old one left. But in this case, Jesus' followers are sad. They're frustrated that he's died. And that's where we pick up the story. One of my favorite chapters in the Bible is Luke chapter 24. If you've got a Bible at home, which I know at least a few of you do, blow the dust off it, open it up, follow along with me. Luke chapter 24. Here's what it says. Now that same day, two disciples, were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened, like specifically Jesus dying. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. And he asked them, what were you discussing together as you walked along? And so they stood still, their faces downcast. Now, like, if you've recently died and come back to life, and people are like still sad when you go and talk to them, you know something's not right. Now, one of them, named Cleopas, says, Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? It's almost like somebody being like, coronavirus, I haven't heard of that thing. What is that? I haven't heard about it. They're saying this is so famous. Everybody's heard that Jesus died. Everybody's heard that this happened, that the crowd gathered, they chanted they wanted a serial killer back instead of wanting Jesus. And so that there's widespread knowledge about the fact that this is happening. So they were there, and Jesus says, what things? Which is like the ultimate rhetorical answer to the question. Well, about Jesus of Nazareth, they replied, he was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and the rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, on the third, it is the third day since it took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but they didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Clearly, they're quite doubtful since they're so downcast. Maybe they thought these women were just having some sort of weird delusion, and in that time, for Jesus to come back and appear to women only would have been like, what? He said to them, how foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer those things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what the scriptures had said concerning himself. And as they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued as if he was going farther, but they urged him strongly and said, stay with us, for it's nearly evening and the day is almost over. So he went to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he took bread, he gave thanks, and he broke it, which is kind of Jesus' thing. And then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. It's interesting, isn't it, that I think that Jesus, when he appears after the resurrection, people don't always know who he is. There's something a little bit different about who Jesus is, and it's something that people aren't really expecting. There's something, and it doesn't go into detail about what that is, but we do know that Jesus has the ability at that point to kind of like show up and leave at will, go through walls, there's something kind of mysterious about his new body that is not exactly the same as his old one. I think it's kind of a preview of what all of us have coming when we pass on from this world and we go to live in the new world, the new heavens and the new earth. That there's something about what the form that we're going to take that's a little bit more mysterious than just like your average run-of-the-mill body, which for some of us is really, really good news. But here's Jesus, and as he appears to the disciples, we don't know what it is about him that made them not recognize him. We don't know why it is that they were walking with this guy for so long and having an in-depth conversation and didn't understand. It makes me wonder, if I was walking down that road, would I have known? Would you have known? I think as we think about that, we have to think about, like, how do we know? How do we truly know when God is active in our lives? I encourage you, if you have a thought, put it in the comments. One question I have for you this morning is, How do you know if God is active in you? How do you know if something that's happening to you has God in it or not? How do you know if something that's happening to you is God kind of superseding your desire and superseding your plans? How do you know if there's something holy about the thing that you're doing and the thing that you're experiencing that's more than the average? Obviously, God's in everything and God's moving in all things, but how do you know when you've experienced kind of that special presence of God, when He's kind of helping things work in your life? And as we see the disciples, Cleopas is one of the disciples, we don't know the name of the other disciple, as they're walking down, one of the interesting things about Jesus is that He starts teaching them, He starts telling them information, lots of information talking about who He is. And it's interesting to me that it isn't until the point where He breaks the bread that they realize that there's something different about this guy. You would think that Jesus is often called teacher. He's an amazing teacher. He knows more than everybody else. But I also think that it's not often that we as people see God most clearly through information. I think that information is good, and I think in some ways all Christians could use a dose of theological training, or a dose of learning, or a dose of changing the way that we think because we're interacting with smarter people than us. Maybe you think there is no one smarter than you, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are smarter than me, so I try to listen to them. But what I find is that those are usually not the moments where I gain the most appreciation for what God has done and for what God is doing. I think it's also true that a lot of us think that emotions are what connect us with God, that if there's something dynamic happening in our lives, like we're in a great worship set, or we're hearing something, we're out in nature, like there's something amazing happening to us, that's where God is, that God is in the supernatural, like cool feeling, I've got like hair standing up on the back of my neck, that's where God is. There's this amazing story from the Old Testament where the prophet is up on the mountain and hears God coming through, and God comes in a lot of different ways, and he thinks God is in all these loud, powerful things like the storm, but it's in that still small place that he actually reveals himself. And if you're like me, I think sometimes when I interact with God, I'm always looking for Him in those crazy times. Like I'm always looking for Him in the middle of a pandemic, or in the middle of somebody being in the hospital, or my foot being broken, or I want God to be there when there's a relationship that's falling apart right in front of me. Like those are the moments where like I expect God to be, that I look for God and I say, God, where are you? And oftentimes it's difficult to find Him in that place. And then I realize that's partially because my mind is so overcome with so many things. So these disciples, as they're walking down this road, are overcome by grief. That there's things going on in their head that are preventing them from seeing who they are actually talking about. They want to have a debate. They want to debate who this person was and why he got to be killed, and was he really the Messiah? Was he really the one that had been promised? And what about these women? What about these women that were so far out of their mind because they were seeing things that probably weren't real? Like would angels really appear to women, and would they particularly appear to these women, and why wouldn't they appear to the disciples first? Like, none of this makes sense. Maybe they just had some bad cereal for breakfast that morning, and what is going on? And these guys were so excited about the debate, they were so excited about the concept, about the information, that they didn't allow themselves to see. They were so busy running the conversation that they didn't let the conversation be run, until they sat their butts down and some bread got broken. They were relaxed, and they were able to finally be vulnerable enough where God could speak truth to them, and they could finally see who Jesus was. That's usually how Jesus' action in our world is known to me. I don't know about you. Maybe you see it in the unbelievable, unfathomable things. Maybe you are somebody who sees God acting in really powerful storms and really powerful actions in the world, and politicians and elections and those sorts of things. I think that when I hear God most clearly, there's a few things that are always true for me. One is that my plan gets superseded by God's plan, which is initially really frustrating. Like, I really don't want that to be the case. I would really like that if God could get my syllabus and follow it, I would really appreciate that He would listen to the plans that I've made. But it's usually when He supersedes those plans, when He supersedes the way that I see things working, that I hear God and see God most clearly. And then I see and hear God most clearly when He does things that are outside of my expected outcomes. I think some of the most surprising things that have happened to me in my life have been things that were very obvious to everyone else, but for some reason my own mind blocked me from seeing them. And then when they happened, I was like, how did I not see that the whole time? It's oftentimes when I'm at the end of my rope, when I've tried all of these other options, and then all of a sudden there's this option waiting there that I hadn't considered but should have been considered all the way from the beginning. It's super obvious. And it's right there, staring me in the face. The last thing that I always know when God's acting in my life because the results are good. I know because He's superseding the things that I've done. I've made these amazing plans. I'm pretty sure this is the only way forward and the only way to get a good result. But somehow He completely changes the course. And even though He completely changes the course, the result is even better than what I would have ever imagined. See, the best thing for us is not to see God when we want to see God, not to see God acting in the ways that we want Him to see. Because if that was the case, we would have a very limited God. We would have a very limited perspective from the ruler of the universe. When we try to tell Him what to do, it often turns out bad for us. But when we listen, when we are still, when we finally sit down around the table and allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Remember, in that time, people laid down to eat. It was the most vulnerable time for any person in that culture, other than when they were sleeping. If you really wanted to run in or hurt someone, the best times to hurt them would have been while they were sleeping or while they were reclining at the table, possibly imbibing some adult beverages. And as they're doing that, that's when they finally see. As they're vulnerable, as they're allowing themselves to be in a space where their guard is let down, they finally see who this is. And it's because He breaks bread. It's not because he makes some sort of magic trick. It's not because He does some sort of amazing thing. It's not because He shows them the holes in His hands and in His feet like He does have to do for Thomas later. It's because in that moment, He allows Himself to be seen when people are vulnerable. When people allow themselves to lay down literally before Him and let their guard down, let their expectations down, let their debate down. And when they do that, He is able to be seen. Maybe you haven't been to church in a long time, and this is the kind of church that you can deal with, like not wearing pants and in your living room. Maybe you are somebody who really longs to be back with your body of believers again. Maybe you're somebody who is just kind of checking this out because it popped up on your page. But I would really encourage you, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, to think about how you are allowing God to speak into your life. If you are chasing holy things, if you are chasing the divine, if you're chasing the meaning of life, if you're chasing whatever it is that you're chasing, wholeness, completeness, any of those things, sometimes the answer is to stop searching and sit and shut up. It's one of the life-giving things that this particular coronavirus has allowed us to do, that we have to sit still. We have to be quiet. And we have to sit and be. At least for another month, we have to sit and be. I would encourage you as you're sitting, as you're being, maybe don't spend all of your times watching Tiger King reruns. Maybe don't spend all of your time surfing the internet. Maybe spend some of your time listening, being, allowing God speak to you, allowing your life to be shaped by Him. Because if there's one thing we know about the post-resurrection stories, it's that Jesus was not always super obvious to people, but when they saw Him, there was no doubt in their mind. When they allowed themselves to be vulnerable, when they allowed themselves to be spoken to, God spoke with authority, and those people saw the power that came with the resurrection. At the core of our faith is the fact that Jesus went to the cross went to the cross and took on our sin because we did not have a way to the Father. We did not have a way to completeness. We did not have a way to wholeness. We did not have a way to be made right with God again all on our own. We needed supernatural intervention, and that supernatural intervention came one weekend around the time that BC flipped to AD, and Jesus came into the world and gave himself for us. But he didn't just die on that cross, he came back to life. And in coming back to life, he conquered death. And in conquering death, he gave us the wherewithal to walk in freedom with him for now and for all eternity. And that's the first time you've heard that. I would love to talk to you more about that. But if that's the time, if this is the 75th time you've heard that, if you've been hearing that for Easter for many, many years, just allow it to wash over you again. Allow yourself to hear it anew for the first time. That it is not in our activity, it is not in our busyness, it is not in our pursuing of God that we actually find completeness and wholeness in our lives. It is when God finds us and speaks to our hearts and brings renewal and growth and sustains us so that we can live in this life and follow him. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, thank you that what you allow us to do is better than what we want to do on our own. That, Lord, you have given us something in following you that is greater than anything that we could experience on our own. And Lord, I pray that as we are watching this from home, from the patio, from wherever we are, Lord, that you would help us to have a new appreciation for how you speak to us. How oftentimes when you seem silent, it's just that we're too loud, that we're too busy, that we are getting in the way of our own understanding of the mysteries of life. And so, Lord, as we hear from you this morning, we pray that you would allow us to hear from you in a new way, that you would allow the grace and the kindness and the sustaining love and power of the resurrected Christ to penetrate our mind, body, and spirit so that we can have a greater appreciation for who you are. Lord, thank you for not leaving us in our suffering. Thank you for not leaving us in our futility, but thank you for giving us something more. Lord, we love you and we thank you for this day. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, before we go to our last song, which we are going to do and we're excited about doing and closing out, and before we get to Mark's tips for surviving the apocalypse, which we will get to right at the end of this service, we have been reading your comments all throughout this service, and we have been finding good ones. Good ones. And if you haven't been commenting, what in the world are you doing, guys? This is why you're here. We want you commenting and telling us what you're thinking and how you're explaining and trying to deal with the fact that, hey, we're on stage and Sunrise is kind of like weirdly back. We're not going to be back for that long, so don't worry. But we want to hear your comments still, but we've found the 3 best ones that our people have been curating all throughout this time and are now going to be read by everybody who's got a microphone. Take it away.
Okay, this first one is from Ed Knack.
Ed!
He says, I am living the movie Groundhog Day. Which is pretty accurate. Feels like it for sure.
I got one here from Kyle Walker. When someone comes too close to the pasture and someone has to be forcibly removed. Don't get too close to Pastor Mark because Kimberly's going to forcibly have to remove.
That's true. I do have one from Dan Stratton.
Dan Stratton.
Richard? I put in 117 episodes of Forensic Files, Wes. I get ya. That's from Dan.
Okay.
It's a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I consider sleeping. Wow. All right, friends, I promised you at the end of this we would hear from our tips for surviving the apocalypse. Yeah, we still have that from the last series. But today I want to tell you that if you're going to have parties at your house, what's going to be really important is that you keep social distancing, my friends. And so I'm going to need my worship leaders to come stand in the front, and we're going to display what social distancing really looks like. Now, you know you're supposed to keep 6 feet apart. You know you're supposed to be wearing a face mask like they are. But this is also, hello. Yeah, social distance, thank you. Now, what I want you to know, though, is that if you're going to use the Texas tradition of cascarones, or confetti eggs, that the correct way to put a confetti egg on someone's head is from behind, so they don't breathe any of the air that you're breathing. So actually, I'm going to have you stand right up here in the front, Florian and Kimberly. I'm going to need you guys to stand right up here so that I can accurately demonstrate. This is for the people. This is for safety. The CDC has asked me to do this. We are going to tell you how you can correctly use a cascarones for someone in your family. Just like this. From behind, you want to make sure that you crush it above their head and make sure that you put it very nicely all over. And do not touch the hair. Perfect. Now, in case you weren't completely aware for that one, in case you were looking away, I want you to know that you can also, because usually the hair doesn't include any sort of problems, you can always do this and make sure that you get them real good like that. And let's just say that if you have a custodian who's also one of your worship leaders, you should probably go ahead and use it on somebody else. There we go. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Oh, hold on. There we go. All right. Friends, we are so grateful that you joined us for Easter at Sunrise. We want you to live the rest of this day like something good has happened to you, because something good has happened to you. You have been bought and purchased and set free by Jesus Christ, who has come, he has died, he has risen, and he will come again. Friends, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Goodbye from Sunrise.
Happy Easter!
Happy Easter!
Feliz Pascua! Woo!